Back with us once again is Cassidy Hutchinson. Her new book is called Enough. It comes out tomorrow. Thank you again for being here. You write in the book about, in detail about your interactions with the January 6th committee. You did 6 interviews with them plus the live testimony. But then you also say that you met, I believe, 3 times with Justice Department personnel and prosecutors and once with the Fulton County grand jury. Is that all correct? Do you expect to be called to testify in any of the Trump trials?
I have fully complied with all government investigations in all entities thus far, and I will continue to do so.
But you can't talk about whether you're going to testify.
If or when I am asked to testify, I will comply as fully as I have in the past.
Did prosecutors involved in any of those conversations or any of the live cases ask you to leave certain topics out of the book?
No. No, everything that is in the book is also consistent with my transcripts that are on the record with the government or with the January 6th committee.
Okay.
Well, everything pertaining to the election fraud.
Yeah.
And Mr. Trump's attempt to overthrow the government to stay in power. All in the public record.
One of the things that you describe in some detail in the book that I don't just quite know what to make of involves your direct boss, Mark Meadows. I've been describing you the shorthand, and you use this in the book. You say sort of chief of staff to the chief of staff. You're essentially the top staffer to Mr. Meadows. So you're with him a lot of the time. You definitely know what's going on in his life. You're close to him in the work sense every day that he's in the office. And yet there is some mystery that I don't totally understand as to what he was burning in his fireplace and to what he was doing with either classified or previously classified documents related to Crossfire Hurricane, related to the Russia investigation. Are you describing what appeared to you to be either mishandling of classified information or mishandling of presidential records, destruction of presidential records, which of course is not allowed?
The final days, it obviously was chaotic in a number of ways. I was under the impression, and I know there were several of my colleagues that were under the impression that how classified documents were being handled was not within proper protocol. Now, with saying that, I think it speaks also just to how reckless and careless much of the administration was, not taking classified document protocol seriously a lot of the time. We've seen that with Mr. Trump as well. But, specific to my experience with Mr. Meadows in the final days of the administration, I talk about it a lot in the book to shed light on how chaotic things were. But, I can't really speak to what he was doing. I would leave that as a question to him.
I mean, it does sound like there were confrontations in the White House, including those that involved you, related to perceived mishandling of sensitive information. I dropped the bag on Pat Cipolloni's floor. Here are your classified documents back from the reporters, Mark. I didn't hide my contempt, my words rife with sarcasm. Mark and Mr. Cipollone peered into the bag. I saw Mark swallow hard. Pat shot me a piercing look. Overwhelmed, Pat agonized. Seriously, we do not have time for this. I was already walking out of his office. You then describe Mr. Meadows at 11:45 a.m. on Inauguration Day, asking the Secret Service how quickly they can get to the Justice Department because he wants to try to declassify something literally in the last 15 minutes when Donald Trump is president.
Joe Biden's about to get sworn in, so yes.
What was that about? What was he trying to do?
That specific binder was pertinent to Crossfire Hurricane, which, for the record, at the time, I had no idea what Crossfire Hurricane was. But looking at the bigger picture here, bringing it back to next year's election, these people very well could be in power again. And do we want people who have already shown that they're willing and want to overthrow an election, for a duly elected president, which is the pinnacle of our democracy? Do we want to put people like that back in power? Do we want to put people back in power that have mishandled and have been showed to mishandle the most sensitive national security secrets that our nation has? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves.
We got a statement from a spokesperson for Mr. Meadows tonight. not sort of just vaguely casting aspersions at you, it's most of the statement, but then saying much of her claims in this book about Mr. Meadows or otherwise are filled with half-truths, falsehoods, and purposefully omitting context to sell books. Mr. Meadows is essentially just casting aspersions on your character, saying that you are making things up out of whole cloth in order to make money. You worked so closely with him for a long time, but you also describe in the book that you never really trusted him. And there are several instances you describe in which he flat out lied to you, even on close working matters where you should have been on the same side. I should just ask for a response to you for that statement and ask you what you think happened between you and Mark Meadows.
I don't think there was anything necessarily negative to happen between me and Mark Meadows. I was very outspoken after January 6th about how I felt about it. Mark and I also knew that we were two different people, and that's okay. You know, we regularly talked about it. We would regularly joke about it, that I was more moderate than he was, but we did in large part work well together.
More ideologically moderate.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, ideologically moderate, more so than he was. But, you know, putting that aside, that in an environment like that, that doesn't matter as much. In terms of his statement, you know, I would encourage him to go testify under oath if he thinks that what is in the book and what I have testified to under oath, which is consistent with what is in the book, he can go testify under oath if he has strong feelings about that.
Were you disappointed that the Justice Department elected not to prosecute him for contempt of Congress when he ignored the congressional subpoena that you responded to from the January 6th investigation?
I'll leave it to Mr. Meadows and his team to respond to that. What I will say is I hope that Mark is now doing the right thing, what I define as the right thing, which is coming forth and honoring your oath that you swore to protect your country, not your president.